Good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the globe in the chat room, on another planet, or on the other side. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and I'm Michael Vera, and I do welcome you all wherever it is you may be. This broadcast is coming at you live from the east coast of the United States, the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina. And folks, tonight we've got Thomas Fusco joining us. He's been with me, I want to say 2 other times. And, he's coming back tonight and should be a really good conversation with Thomas and myself as we get into everything from the paranormal to the extraterrestrial phenomena and so on and so forth. And, of course, we'll take calls later on, 803-392-4566. And I want to thank Ira for filling in for me last night. I had some family stuff I had to take care of. So was unable to be on the air last night, and thanks to him, we didn't have to go recorded. So I appreciate that, and it was a pretty good show on top of that. So good job, Ira. We've got a pretty full week, folks. I haven't been able to update the schedule on the website yet. Because we just kind of finalized it last night, so I didn't even get a chance to. But we've got a really good week coming up. We've got Courtney Brown with us tomorrow night, Denise Stoner with us on Thursday, and George McClure joins us on Friday. He wants to talk about Planet 9, and I know we've talked about that a couple times already since that story's come out, and there's a lot of people who think it's just a bunch of bull and others who think it's the real deal. And so we'll bring George on and see what he's got to say about it. And we won't just talk about that. There'll be many things we'll get into. A couple things I want to get into here tonight before I even get into news. Well, a little bit of news. As you know, Cruz apparently took it in Iowa. But, some people, I guess they don't know how this kind of thing works. That's not it. They still got New Hampshire. There's South Carolina. And I could tell you what, here in South Carolina, I mean, it's like Trump Central here. You could pretty much no corner you could turn without a Trump sign. But he's in double digits, leading in double digits in New Hampshire. So, this is the way I look at it, folks. I've never ever backed up a candidate ever. I mean, Ron Paul, but we knew he wasn't going to have a chance. We knew he wasn't going to get in because they did. He just wasn't outspoken enough to keep himself in the spotlight. I mean, they ignored him. They did a good job of ignoring him. And now there's Donald. And why do I like him? I like him because the guy has got solid brass balls. I mean, he's saying it like it is. Now, will he do what he says? I don't know. I'm hoping so. I believe in him. I think he's true. He's definitely the only candidate that's not any part of establishment, except for, listen, let me tell you this. If you want to get the brain surgeon in there, I'd go for that before anybody else up there. If it couldn't be Trump, it would have to be that Carolina or whatever her name is, or the brain surgeon. I mean, I wouldn't like it, but you know what? I'd rather have that than any of those other puppets who are up, and that includes Cruz, any of them. But, so I don't want another politician in there. That I don't want, and that's what we're going to wind up with. If I just feel like, if any of those other scumbags get in there, and they're puppets, folks. They got hands up their backs. If any of them get in there, hang it up. And they still want Hillary, even though I don't know. I don't see how she can't go to jail now. But, it happens. Look at Bush. Look at the things they got away with. Look what Obama's gotten away with. So, I could see it happening because the American people allow these kinds of things to happen. So I could see it happening, but I hope not. And me, I'm pulling for Trump. I hope he gets in there, and I hope he does what he says he does. I hope I don't have to turn on him and scream and yell at him. But, we'll see what happens. And, if you don't like him, well, that's your business. Good for you. But, don't expect me not to defend him. I mean, he's the only guy he's funding his own campaign. he's pretty much put down all the establishment. I mean, you name it, he's battled with them, including Fox. And I mean, so I don't know. I like him. Everybody's got their own opinions. And, again, just because I like him, it doesn't mean that I think he's going to save the world. I think that's stupid if you think that. It's going to take more than one man or one woman to save anything. I mean, it's going to take us all. I've said this before. So, I mean, if he doesn't get in there, it's not ha-ha Mike. It's ha-ha you. It's ha-ha the whole country. I mean, because here's a guy that would probably pave the way for us, to take it back. But go ahead and get yourself a Rubio or a Clinton or one of them people in there, or a Bush or what have you, and it's going to be, same old stuff. Anyways, without us all coming together, it's not going anywhere anyways. And we got a really dumbed down population. We really do. So how much confidence do I have? Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. But I hold on to a little hope. I do. Now something else here. Let's see. I got a ton of news stories here that I wanted to get into, and some kind of fun news as well. But I guess before I do let me do that, and then I'll get my nitpicker at the end here. Builders find old Ouija board behind a vent. The spirit board was found stuffed inside a heating vent by builders carrying out renovation work. The workmen must come across a lot of strange things behind walls and under floorboards. But imagine tearing down an old heating vent and finding a Ouija board hidden behind it. See, now I would have told the other guys, hey, on lunch, let's try it. Anyways, this was the scenario that was faced by a group of builders recently who made the unexpected discovery while renovating a property dating back over 100 years. The board itself appeared to be quite old and is believed to date back at least several decades. I think the old boards are the good ones. I want one that doesn't say Parker Brothers or whatever on it. Anyhow, that's linked up. Go check it out if you like. New Zealand, they're plagued by vampire attacks, according to this article. Authorities in the small New Zealand town have been left perplexed by a particular series of biting attacks. 3 separate incidents in the town of Napier, each involving a person being bitten, have been described by local police this week as weird due to the similarities between them. So they think they might have some vampires, or at least people who want to be vampires on the loose. Can you imagine walking down the street and someone, actually, it's kind of happened here. We had the zombie here in the U.S. I remember a story in Florida. It might have been back in 2012 when a naked guy attacked another guy in Florida and attacked him on the street and started trying to eat him. I mean, it was literally taking chunks out of this guy and chewing it and, eating him. Just unbelievable. So anyhow, this is linked up as well. If you're interested to find out more about vampire attacks, they're there for you. Zika outbreak is now a global emergency, says World Health Organization. Now, I had somebody emailed me about this and trying to convince me that it's got nothing to do with the mosquito and it's something else. And I don't know if it's some Fed trying to throw you down the road. Like, I'm telling you, where my research has taken me is to the mosquito. If yours is taking you somewhere else, well, God bless you. I mean, all the power to it. Don't waste time writing emails to me. Get it out there. Let people know. My research says it's all coming down to the genetically modified mosquito. So that's where it's taken me. But anyways, the World Health Organization has declared that the Zika virus outbreak is a public health emergency of international concern. And they say 4 more places added to U.S. travel alert on Zika. The U.S. travel alert has been issued for 4 more destinations. And they are, let's see here, they added American Samoa, Costa Rica, Caraccio or something like that. And then there's Nicaragua. And I think that's it right now. But, they say they had the first cases in a couple states here in the United States. So, here it comes. The genetically modified diseases coming to a town near you. That's linked up too. Hackers allegedly hijacked drone after massive breach at NASA. Hackers released 631 aircraft and radar videos, 2,143 flight logs, and data on 2,414 employees. See, this isn't the information I want you to get from NASA. You need to get into their X-Files, if you will. A group of hackers claimed that they broke into NASA's computer system and not only acquired a wealth of data possibly related to geoengineering, but also almost crashed a drone. Now, this is good stuff. Now, if they've gotten into some stuff related to geoengineering and they could share that with everybody, that would be really, really sweet. But what would people do about it? Nothing, right? The hackers, part of an organization known as ANNSEC, say that the breach of NASA's system was an inadvertent development which arose due to the spread of a virus which has spread throughout the internet. They once realized that they had NASA's network, and the group spent months exploring the system. Months in the system? And that's all they got, really, is the geoengineering? Well, I'm waiting for more to come out on this, folks, but there's a whole big write-up here about it. Not really, just saying that they've got a whole bunch, I think something like 276 gigabytes of data. So, what's on that data? I don't know. I hope that they release it before they wind up dead. That I do hope. Britain has jumped the gun on gene editing. It says that we do not know what the consequences will be for future generations, and it will be too late to reverse. But they're already doing this stuff. I mean, this brings me back again to genetically modified, not just mosquitoes, but food, plants, you name it. We're probably already eating genetically modified animals if you eat meat. They're not going to tell you. They don't tell you these things. Just like Pepsi and Coke, using the fetus, leftover fetus for flavoring. I mean, this is true stuff, folks. It's not nonsense. I mean, unbelievable. Well, anyways, Britain now, they're doing some gene editing, and what they want to do, they want to do it before the baby's born. They want to do it to the embryos. And they're saying that, wow, okay, so you do it to these embryos, baby comes out just fine, but maybe it skips a generation or two, whatever, they've done and whatever it might cause. So that's linked up as well. Other countries, such as the United States, they say are just as advanced as Britain in gene editing indeed, but they're more cautious in using it. Yeah, right. The United States is doing it. They got laboratories all over the place. They're doing this kind of stuff. They got children in cages right now as we speak. I promise you they do. And I know it's just a bunch of nonsense, right? It's not true because CNN didn't tell you. Now, last but not least, every now and then, more often than not, I get listeners who will send me requests. They'll say, hey, here's a good guy. I think this is a good guest for your show. You should check him out, him or her or whoever, right? And I always go and check out, anything that they send. I'll always take a peek at it and see if I'm interested. And, I always do. I pay attention to all the email I get. And if it's spam, it goes in spam. If it's a troll, well, it goes in the troll file. That's all. But so anyways, they say, hey, there's this guy, and I'll just call him James. I won't give the whole name, because I was gonna, but I'm not gonna, because why even give the guy any kind of leeway or what have you, or any recognition. But this guy James, and no, not James in our chat. We love that James. This is a guy that I was told that I should get for a guest, so I sent him an email. And I didn't know nothing about the guy, so I sent him an email. I took a peek at his website, and I thought, oh, interesting, all right. So I sent him an email, right? He writes back, says, it sounds interesting, Michael. Thank you for the invitation, blah, 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 blah. Then, I gave him some details. I didn't hear nothing right away, and then he writes back finally. Says, I'm sorry, Michael. Now listen, let me just say this. What do normal people do? I mean, what do most people do, right? If you don't want to, like, say you invite me on your show. You say, hey, Mike, I want you to come on my, we've got this blog talk thing going. So if I don't want to do it, do I insult you? Or do I just simply say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to be too busy, and even make up any excuse and just say no, right? Isn't that the right thing to do? Okay, well, here's what he says. He says, I'm sorry, Michael. I'm too busy to stay up late. Now, I could have just left it there, but he decided to go on. He says, but more importantly, I'd prefer not to have the AI risk conversation lumped together with a lot of questionable quasi-science you cover. Oh, really? He says, no offense, but my subject is on a different channel. Best regards, James Dickhead. Okay? So basically what he's saying is that the science that we cover here on this show is, well, it's not real, not exactly real. It's, it's so-called. It's kind of like a religious cult is basically what he's saying. It's based on a lot of belief. Well, I disagree with this guy. I disagree with him big time. Now, he could have been nice about it. And, well, anyways, I do my homework, right? So I decide, okay, let's see where this dickhead's coming from. So I go doing a little search and find out that he's been on Coast to Coast hundreds of times. I mean, he's like their own child over there. And so, but, I don't know. I'd never heard of the guy before. But he's been on their show quite a few times. So now it makes sense to me what happened. At first it was, hey, sounds interesting, Michael. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you. Right? Okay. And then they whisper a little bit in his ear, and then he comes back insulting me. I have news for this guy. After looking into him, and I did look into him pretty good, and you can go, no, you can't, because I'm not going to tell you who he is. But, the guy's a salesman. He's a coast-to-coast groupie and an AI alarmist is basically what he is. So he's got 18 documentaries out. He's selling the world over there on his site, selling you everything he can. Well, this is a guy that stands for truth. Hey, James, in case you're listening, kiss my ass, pal. I got your quasi-science right here. So with that, folks, I want to take a break. And when we come back, I will have my guest with me, and I'm looking forward to speaking with him tonight. That is Thomas Fusco. He's been here before. He's coming back again. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and I am Michael Vera. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Joshua Vera, and I wanted to inform you that Late Night in the Midlands is offering limited on-air advertisement. With 30 and 60-second spots available, or inquire about placing your banner ad on the LNM website. Or go ahead and package a deal, but either way, get the attention you deserve and join the LNM family. Contact us at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. Again, that email is mv@latenightinthemidlands.com.
Share our content and use the hashtag LNM Radio for your chance to win a free subscription. Those who use it at least 10 times a month will find themselves entered into a drawing every month to win a free 2-month subscription from Late Night in the Midlands. So spread our news, spread our website, and use hashtag LNM Radio.
LNM fans and late-nighters around the world, have you captured something on that photo or video of yours? Send in your photos and videos of ghosts, orbs, UFOs, Planet X, or just about anything content related by submitting them to the Late Night in the Midlands Facebook group or fan page, or you can submit them on Twitter using hashtag LNM Radio. And if you would rather stay anonymous, then email them to us at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. Late Night in the Midlands. We're building a bridge to the truth and beyond.
Become a late nighter without the late nights. And subscribe now to help Late Night in the Midlands bring you the best guests with the best information.
Hello, this is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at HealthWorldAffiliates.com/4948. That's HealthyWorldAffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from the CureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
Are you a late nighter? Well, if not, here is one more reason to join the family. We have added the Late Nighters Forum to LateNightInTheMidlands.com, and it is open for discussion of our many topics and guests. Now you have a place where you can share your thoughts and ideas with the entire Late Nighter community. So become a Late Nighter by subscribing on our website, LateNightInTheMidlands.com, and start leaving your mark on the Late Nighter community now.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com.
Is there proof of God's existence in our government's records? Author Jose Collazo brings his years of research into this stunning question to light with his new book. Discover how new and experimental technologies may change our world forever and uncover monumental proof and answers to mankind's greatest questions in God Does Exist, No More Nuclear Testing, and more.
You could find Jose Collazo's book, America's New Slavery, on Amazon.com. Hey, late nighters. I have a secret I want to share with you. What if I told you there's a way to hear some of our show content free on YouTube? Well, it just so happens there's a guy who is honest and supports Late Night in the Midlands big time. And he owns a YouTube channel I highly recommend. Non-Human Entities. Yes, non-human entities. And if you do not have a pencil handy, no sweat. You can just click one of the many banners on our website. Non-human entities. That's non-human entities. Again, just look for them on YouTube or click the banner on LateNightInTheMidlands.com for non-human entities. Attention LNM Radio Network listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the LNM Radio Network by calling 605-562-4203? No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 605-562-4203 to listen to the LNM Radio Network on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Become a late nighter without the late nights. And subscribe now to help Late Night in the Midlands bring you the best guests with the best information. On the East Coast of the United States, from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, you're listening to Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera. To talk to Michael Vera, dial 803-392-4566 or around the world on Skype. Just use Skype ID LNM Radio.
All right, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and I am Michael Vera, and I welcome you all. Anybody who might be just tuning in, you're tuning in at the right time, really, because we've got a great guest coming up, and I'm looking forward to talking with Thomas Fusco, which I'll tell you more about tonight in just a few minutes here. By the way, the website www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, and be informed. But by all means, inform others. And oh yes, and by the way, folks, help us out. We did not. This is the second month in a row now. We've not made our quota. And what happened the last time is we had to add on to that, and so now we've had to do that again and again. We're scraping by here to keep things going, folks. So we ask, unlike Keith and Art, we won't sell you a song down the river here. We're telling you the truth that without you there is no us. So help us out and keep us on the air so we can continue to bring you, honestly, the best guests, the best information. We got a great guest coming on tonight, and we'll be bringing him on in just a moment. You could become a late nighter, folks, by clicking the subscribe button over on latenightinthemidlands.com. It is that easy. Of course, donations, those are great. Those help us immediately. So if you can donate, by all means, do so. We've been adding more shows to the network, and we might even be adding more live shows to the network here. We're working on stuff. I mean, they've been coming left and right lately, and it's good ones too, not just run-of-the-mill stuff. I mean, we're talking about real people covering real issues. That's what we do here. So looking forward to it. All right, so here is what. Oh, and by the way, folks, we've got rules in our chat. Now, I don't think that our chat room rules are. I don't think that they're too much. I think that they're perfect, and I don't have the window open. But on our chat room, we do have a little list of rules above the chat, and we ask that you follow those rules. As long as you follow those rules, you'll never have a problem with us. Now, there's one more rule that's not on there, and that is writing constantly in caps. Now, normally it wouldn't bother me, but I get a lot of complaints about it. So, folks, unless you're angry at somebody, which I hope you're not, but unless you're angry at somebody, that would be another one, because people take that as you're yelling at them, and nobody likes to be yelled at. So they get mad and they complain and they say, Michael, I was in your chat room and that man kept yelling at me. I'm telling you, I can show you the email. I get them. So don't yell at each other. Be nice. All right. We got moderators in the chat room who are there to help you. They all got LNM after their name. So if you need somebody, that's how you can go about getting any help, because we don't allow people to bully or any of that in the chat room or troll you. So if that happens, let one of our moderators know, and if need be, we'll get rid of the problem. All right? Okay, so Thomas Fusco is my guest. Thomas has devoted nearly 3 decades of research into the relationship between mind, physics, spirituality, parapsychology, scientific anomalies, and paranormal phenomena, with the goal of uncovering the unifying cosmological framework that has lured mankind for generations. So he's going to join us here in just a moment. His website's thecosmicveil.com. His books, Behind the Cosmic Veil, you could find that. I believe it's on Amazon, anywhere, especially his website. You could probably find it there as well. And so let's go ahead and bring Thomas on here. There we go. All right. So here we go. Let's get this thing going. It's ringing, folks. There we go. Thomas.
Hey.
Welcome back to Late Night in the Midlands, my friend.
Thanks for inviting me back, Michael. It's always a pleasure to be on the show with you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's great to have you. I'm looking forward to talking with you tonight. I know last time we had a great conversation, so looking forward to repeating that a little bit. So what you been up to?
Well, I first have to stop off to or start by saying that my science is on a different wavelength.
Yeah.
Like that clown you were talking about earlier.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, how insulting to all the great people who come on this show and share, their research with us. I mean, that's just... So I don't know. I guess there's just better ways to say no, right?
Oh, yeah. And, one of the challenges, of course, particularly if you are researching into some advanced sciences like I've done and do, is that you have to be able to convey that in an easy to understand language. If you can't communicate it effectively and simply, Michael, you really don't understand your subject. For some of these science-minded people that have their head up in the clouds in other places, if you can't come down to earth and talk, turkey with just everyday people, then you really don't know your subject very well.
Oh, yeah, and that's true. And, I've only in the 8 years, a little over 8 years I've been doing this, I've only dealt with a couple like that who just thought that they were, what didn't stink. And, you had to have like 30 million people listening to your show, or because they couldn't sell enough if they came on and there wasn't 30 million people. So.
I hear you, man. Anyway, I've been kind of working on a few other projects in addition to continuing to, try to promote the supergeometric theory in my book and try to make some inroads into various disciplines where this fresh look at things will help elevate those disciplines to the next level. And I got a couple other things I'm working on too, so I've been trying to keep busy.
Well, good. I thought maybe we'd start out here a little bit with some background, give everybody a little bit of a scoop of how you've gotten down this road that you've taken.
Well, I have a physics background, although I've always been kind of a rebel, and I kind of rebelled against the mainstream, which makes me a good guest for your show. I'm a good fit.
Right.
But one of the things that actually the main thing that caused me to go down that path was some very profound, I don't want to say paranormal, and I hate to use the word psychic because there's so much baggage associated with it. Let's say I had a couple of very profound parapsychological experiences in my late teens and early 20s that caused me to call into question the classical model of reality that I was taught at university. When you experience these things yourself, and you know this, Michael, it's very difficult to just brush them off as some kind of a intellectual curiosity or a coffee table discussion. It's very real to you.
That's right.
And then when you turn to the discipline that you've devoted yourself to and find that not only do they not have any place in their framework and their system that would accommodate this, but moreover, they look down upon it and actually are quite prejudiced against it, or even considering it, you're left on your own. You have to use your own devices and resources the best as you can to research this yourself. And so that's what I spent, pretty much 3 decades looking into these things, looking at very different sources, applying known physics and known scientific principles, and finally arriving at a model that explains it and encompasses, traditional scientific findings, and relativity and all of those things in quantum mechanics. And when I finally felt I had it in a form that I thought I could communicate it effectively to a person who, to the average person who has an interest in this subject, that's when I published. And, yours was one of the first shows that, you gave me a shot when I was nobody from nowhere, and gave me the opportunity to come on your show and talk about my work. So,
you did a great job. I remember that first show. I remember it like it was yesterday, and at the time flew.
Yes, it has a tendency to do that. And as you recall, Michael, because my work is this all-encompassing kind of thesis, you could pick any number of these esoteric subjects, and I can jump right in on it because this what I call the supergeometric theory, this model has something to say about all these different kinds of subjects.
Yeah. Well, and there is a lot to say about these subjects, the paranormal, especially in general. Now, you say that you have a theory on how supernatural and paranormal type phenomena they can be explained. You say by bubbles and portals.
Well, yeah, diffluential field bubbles. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
We are just a little.
I don't want to talk about bubbles right away until we kind of break the audience in and all their red pills start taking effect. But
okay, so the paranormal then. Let's just start there. I mean, it's real. I've experienced it. You've experienced. Now, you said how'd you say that again? A
parapsychological experience is what people would normally use the term psychic for. Psychic phenomena or mental phenomena. The technical term for it is parapsychology. ESP, remote viewing, those kinds of things. Knowing something that you shouldn't know, and yet you know it. So the problem is in classical physics, everything has to do with cause and effect. Or I should say, Michael, in a broader sense, that the paradigm of modern science and modern physics is that reality, and we're going to use that term reality to mean everything that there could possibly be. The entire realm of existence on every plane. To mainstream science, reality is the physical universe. And the physical universe is reality. And there's nothing that lays outside of that.
Right.
Everything is physical. In this paradigm, in this model, every physical effect, everything that we can observe and measure, even with our senses and with our instrumentation, has to have a equally physical cause located in the same universe as the physical effect and connected to the physical effect in some way. Now, it sounds a little bit technical, but it's really very simple, that, you have a cause and an effect, that they're connected to one another and they're all physical. But then we come up with these kinds of phenomena, like paranormal phenomena, like psychic phenomena, where we have an effect with no local physical cause. For example, if somebody in a dark room saw a shadow walk by, or saw somebody walk by and they look like a shadow, this would be normal because the effect of the shadow is being caused by the body of the person that's walking through the room. That's what normal is. What makes it paranormal is that we see the effect of the shadow, but with no physical body creating it.
Thank you. I was just going to say now, the shadow, I have seen those shadows, those shadow people they're called. And, I'd have to ask, where is something like that coming from? And could it even be some sort of technology that, say, an alphabet agency could be using? So they appear as a shadow person, but really, something we don't understand.
Well, I think there are a number of other phenomena, what we call in physics anomalies, observations that don't quite fit into the standard model. We really don't know where they go or belong yet. But paranormal phenomena has been reported for hundreds of years, long before we had, it was mentioned in the Bible, long before we have any kind of a technology. So we have to work, I believe, under the assumption that this is some sort of a natural function. It is a mechanism that is operating in consistency, in accordance with the way the universe is naturally put together. But the problem, of course, with mainstream science is that they don't accept the physical effect without a local physical cause. And so consequently, this is one of the reasons why science has considered paranormal phenomena and these kinds of, these kinds of psychic phenomena as something that they don't even want to go into. They could just simply fall back and say, well, if there's no physical cause, it doesn't exist. It's just in everybody's mind. And so this is that dilemma. This is that dogma, that religious, like cultish belief in science that my theory combats and tries to overcome by introducing a third state of reality.
Okay.
And tying it to the first two. Now, what I mean by third state, modern science accepts two states of reality, which we have not been able to reconcile. And that is the quantum state, quantum mechanics, or more modern terms, quantum field theory, and relativity. Quantum mechanics is great at explaining the microscopic subatomic universe. And relativity works perfectly for the universe at large, the part that's tangible that we normally see and walk in and experience. And we haven't been able to reconcile that. So we consider reality as a two-state existence right now, because we haven't come up with that unified field theory yet that joins them all together. What I proposed, and to put it in kind of a scientific way that we can intelligently talk about, is a third state of reality that's called the supergeometric. And what this is an extension of space-time that is not physical.
Then what would it be? I mean, what, kind of try to give me a visual. Might not be easy. I don't know, but because I think of the two, I think of the paranormal, and then I think of the normal, which would be our reality, what we are right now, physical, and then I think of the non-physical, which would be some people call it the spiritual world. I don't know, so you're saying there's a third then?
Yes, because what we have, and one of the steps I had to do very early on in my research, I realized that I had to give a scientific definition for what was paranormal, what that means. And the only thing that I came up with is what we call in physics non-locality or non-local causality. You have an effect with no physical cause. But the effect is very real. If you hear, for example, in a haunted house, if you hear a strange voice, you hear somebody speaking when there's no one there, the voice is normal. What you're hearing is a normal voice. It has frequency and amplitude. It is being propagated by acoustic waves through the atmosphere, through the medium. Just like normal sound. What is paranormal about it is that there's no set of vocal cords in the room speaking them.
Yeah.
And just this definition alone has helped a lot of people to begin to talk about this subject, intelligently and try to get their hands around it. And I can speak with the scientific community about this too, in terminology that they understand. Now, if we have a physical effect with no local physically connected cause, then we have to consider the real possibility that the effect is being caused by something that lays outside of the physical.
Yeah.
Now, this seems to make sense. I mean, most people will say, oh, gee, you're talking about the spirit world. Yes, but that has no scientific relevance. But when you start talking about a superstructure of physical geometry, then you begin to start getting a handle on what that spirit world is, which is what my work does. When you talk to people that are very much attuned to the spirit world and spiritual things, they can't really tell you what the structure of it is. But supergeometry gives us a model of what this structure looks like.
So then this third realm of reality, how would you get there? Is this somewhere you go after you've been to the spirit world, or is this somewhere you skip the spirit world to go to, or how does one get there, or do we?
Well, according to this model, we are all always there.
Oh.
Everything in reality, in physical reality, I should say, because I get caught into using that term in the old way. Everything that is physical has a pre-physical or non-physical cause. I'll give you an example. You asked me earlier, Michael, draw me a picture. I don't know whether your audience, I know some people in the audience are going to be familiar with an extruder. So, for example, if you've ever eaten Cheese Whizzes or those Cheez-Its kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Where you can't stop eating, and by the time you're done, everything in the upper 2 feet of your body is orange with it.
That's right.
It goes everywhere. Anyway, this is made with an extruder. So that the material is shoved through this pipe, it's pushed through this pipe, and it's got a nozzle at the end of it. And it's heated, and as it comes out of the nozzle, it expands and takes form and becomes the little Cheez-It noodle. In this model, what we would be looking at is that the nozzle itself, if you were looking straight at it, the nozzle itself and the Cheez Whiz or the Cheez-It, whatever it is the physical reality. What lies behind that nozzle, we can't see. And that's the supergeometric realm. That's that third state of reality, from which the physical universe emerges and emanates.
Now, would this be, somebody had brought it up in chat, would this be what's called the multiverse, or is this different from that?
Now, this is interesting. That's a great question, Michael, from the chat room. The multiverse, believe it or not, is one of these subtle, and I hate to use the word conspiracy, but on your show, we're amongst friends when we talk about conspiracy.
Right.
It's like a silent conspiracy in the scientific world that came up with this. And it is, believe it or not, it is a materialistic model. And here's what I mean. When we talk about these paranormal and supernatural phenomena and other anomalies in physics that point to the fact that there's a part of reality that isn't physical, that makes the religious scientists nuts. And so they came up with this idea of the multiverse, to where if we don't have the material cause in our own universe, we just borrow a material cause from another universe. and make it come into ours, and the physical material paradigm has been preserved. This model is not the multiverse at all. In fact, it explains everything that a multiversal model might try to explain without requiring other universes. We simply have a what we would say is the physical universe, and we have what's called the patriverse, which is what I call it. Pater from the Latin meaning father. Sorry, ladies, I went with the masculine on that. And this patriverse is like a super physical overlay on top of the physical universe. And when we put this all together, we get what I call the omniverse.
You know, it almost sounds like I've looked at the universe and everything in it is intelligently designed. And so that tells me, I don't know, I picture this kid, this spoiled kid, who he's got more universes than he needs.
We got a comment in the chat room I saw. It says, even stupid scientists, LOL, know the 3 states of matter. I don't know whether they think that that's what I'm talking about, but if you think that's what I'm saying, then you didn't get it. You just don't get it. I'm talking about 3 states of reality, not 3 states of matter.
Uh-huh. And so in 3 states of reality, now, I mean, to some people, even the spiritual realm isn't reality to them. However, if you're there, I guess it then becomes reality, doesn't it?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And really, when you read into my work, you realize what I am talking about is what people have been calling the spiritual world for centuries, which is obviously connected to our physical world, but you can't see it. It's not tangible. And the effects that are generated from that spiritual realm into the physical, we are able to see and experience, but we can't see the source. What supergeometry has done is to take that, because I never really talk about, quote unquote, the spirit realm. The second I do, I lose all my scientific brethren. They just flush me out the door. But the supergeometric realm gives an idea of the structure of what that, quote unquote, spiritual world would be.
Well, I guess then I would want to know why is it? Why are these different? It's almost like different religions. Why?
Well, of course, people interpret these things in many different ways. Again, Michael, up until my work, there has never been a scientifically meaningful model to plug all of these kinds of ideas into while being consistent with scientific findings. They basically, when people start talking about the spirit world, they kind of leave, they kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. They leave science behind. They just make these blanket statements and say, well, science can't explain the supernatural. So let's just forget about science altogether. And once you lose a foundational reference point, like 2 and 2 equals 4, once you conclude or throw math out and saying 2 and 2 can mean anything, then you're free to speculate upon anything that you want.
That's just it. I was just going to say, see, science could figure these things out if science would get outside the box. For the scientists who can't get outside the box, they're never going to figure it all out.
That's right. And for mainstream science today, that box is that reality is only what's physical.
Yeah. So, and so I guess that's maybe what that guy was talking about on this show, because we will go outside the box, and maybe that makes us irrelevant. I don't know. But again, I say going outside the box is where you're going to find those answers. I mean, imagine, I know people who in their entire lives, they have, and I'm not knocking, this just comes up because I know it, all right? But it's the Bible. I mean, there's people they've read that Bible, they've taken the religious meaning of it, and they've stuck to that throughout their entire lives, and there is nothing else. You cannot make them go anywhere else. But, then there's others who will take that and say, okay, this is great, but there's more, and expand on that. And those are the ones who I think, they learn a lot more. You find out a lot more about yourself, who you are, why you're here. So I guess, why are we here? What does this all mean? I mean, so we're born into this reality. Why are there people in another reality? What is that all about? Why is there the separation?
Oh, well, we're left to imagine any kind of a roadmap that we want to. So each individual acquires their own roadmap, or they adopt one that's, already been established. One of the sayings that I have is that, the Bible is part of a greater scheme of God, a greater picture of God. Some people think that God is contained in the Bible.
I personally don't think that the God being spoke about in the Bible is the God for some reason. But that's what I think, and now people will hate me for that, but that's okay.
and that's all right. But one of the things that I talk about, I try to use, how would I say it? I try to use things that we're familiar with and look at them in a completely different way.
Yeah, like get an understanding, all right? I mean, go ahead.
In a very analytical way. So for example, when people see something, they talk about seeing something, and I'm talking about any site whatsoever. But very rarely do people realize that we don't see anything. We are completely blind when it comes to seeing anything. The only thing that our eyes are able to perceive is reflected and emitted light waves. So without light waves, we see nothing. And during the day, when we see all these things, all we do is see light waves that are reflected off the object. We cannot see the object itself. And when you start looking at things that we commonly talk about, but start digging into them in a scientific, analytical, and critical thinking approach, certain truths begin to emerge that are not in the common culture, so to speak. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
All right. I'm sitting here in my chair looking at a laptop computer. Now, what is that laptop computer? In its very essence, in the broadest sense, what that laptop computer is and think about this, folks, when I say this, because every word means something. It is a materialization of information.
Yeah, that's true. Now who's controlling that information?
Well, now we're talking, here's where it gets different, because science will use terms in different ways than in a common language. What I'm talking about is from physics, where we consider information to be the formula, so to speak, that makes up everything. And a hydrogen atom is a hydrogen atom because of the information that is behind the assemblage of that atom.
Would that be like its DNA?
In a sense, yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. So everything in the universe is an expression of materialized information. Now, this is the way that I phrase it. That's something that I've introduced into the scientific vernacular. But I go a step further and say everything in the universe is an expression of materialized and materializing information. That the process is ongoing. So to get back to my example with the laptop, which is a materialization of a pattern of information. I'm not talking about the data.
Right.
I could talk about something else. Let's say I'm looking at, my coffee cup.
Right. A coffee cup, medicine bottle, a pen, really anything. Right.
You got it. Yeah. Somebody said, "Is this the Matrix?" Then no, it's not the Matrix, because digital information cannot be converted to analog waves without an analog device. And if we were in a digital universe, there wouldn't be anything analog to convert information into light and sound waves, which are analog. Think about that for a while, folks. But okay, this coffee cup. Now, where did the information to form that coffee cup come from?
Yeah, well, exactly. Where did it come from? I mean, there's so many questions that I could throw in with that. And even if you could tell me where the information came from, I mean, every little particle that was used to put that cup together must have its own information, right?
Yes. But the pattern of the coffee cup, let's say I'm looking at one that's actually made of steel, and it's anodized on the outside with a plastic handle.
Mine too.
It's insulated. This pattern of information could never occur naturally in nature. There is nothing in the natural world that would assemble something into a coffee cup.
No, that's right. That's true.
Like this.
Yeah.
So the pattern of information came from the human psyche, the human brain. Now, what does this mean? This is where we begin to tie some things together. It means that we have a faculty within us that is able to generate non-physical information and then materialize it in the physical universe according to the pattern of the information. That's profound.
It is, but I mean, we have to use other things to make it possible, though. I mean, right? So, I mean, I think about all the information that has to come just to make that coffee cup.
Absolutely. Most of it, which would never occur in nature, the raw materials do. But, nowhere in the universe are natural processes ever going to combine together to assemble a Dell Inspiron laptop.
Well, now that might change with these 3D printers and stuff.
But that printer would be materializing information that we ourselves created.
That's
now,
true.
Here's where it starts getting really interesting. Let's take a look at the beginning of the universe in what we call the Big Bang Theory. And in spite of people who've tried to knock it down, over time, it not only maintains the most or remains the most viable theory, but we continue to discover more and more information in the universe that confirms that this is what happened. The universe, according to this theory, began as a quantum singularity. Now, and they call it infinitely dense and infinitely small. Now, what is a singularity, scientifically speaking? In the physical universe, space-time, which is the fabric in which everything that we know in the physical universe is woven. We have 4 dimensions, 1 temporal, which is time, and 3 spatial, height, width, and depth. And this forms a fabric, a framework, a structure that Einstein called space-time, in which everything in the universe is embedded and moves. That is a multiplicity, which means it has 4 dimensions, 4 coordinates. To every thing in the universe, there are 4 coordinates. A singularity only has a single coordinate. That's what the word means, folks. There is no height, there is no width, there is no depth, there is no time. All of that is collapsed into a single coordinate. Now, with a single coordinate, you cannot have physical reality because you cannot define space-time. So this singularity existed before space-time, and then suddenly it expanded. It blew up, it emerged, whatever it did. And space and time and all the primordial elements and forces emerged from this singularity into this bubble of space-time that expanded very rapidly. The important thing to what I'm explaining right now is that the blueprint for what came to be the physical universe existed in that singularity. And that singularity existed independently of anything physical. Nothing physical existed. Just a singularity. It was super geometric. It was super physical. It was non-physical. And then suddenly the physical emerged from it, carrying with it all the information that defined space, time, photons, neutrinos. You know, we didn't have a situation where there was this material that tried to assemble itself and disassemble itself and reassemble itself until finally the first neutrino was formed. Neutrinos began to form everywhere in the early universe at the same time according to a predetermined pattern of information. And then the universe was materialized from this non-physical information in an orderly, structured pattern with laws and principles that we're still learning about. Now, what I'm saying, there's a couple things that are implied with this. First of all, my theory says, against what astrophysics says today, they think that the singularity dissolved, that it just turned into the physical universe. My theory states that the singularity still exists, and the universe is still emerging from it, which is why it's expanding.
That's interesting.
But now here's the real kicker. We're talking about non-physical information that is materialized into the physical equivalent of that information in the physical universe. Well, think back for a minute, Michael, what I was talking about with the laptop or the coffee cup. We are the only assembly of matter that we know of that does the same thing. We take non-physical information and we materialize it into its physical equivalent in the universe.
Could that be really, I mean, might that be our purpose? Did somebody create us so that we could bring things into the physical?
It is, let's put it this way. If there was a creator, and the creator had a certain pattern of information, a certain blueprint to it, let's call it like, I forget the physicist's name. He's well known. Let's call it the mind of God. If he was going to construct a universe according to the information that is in himself, build it in his own image, so to speak, his creative faculty would be built into the laws and principles of that universe that he created, because it would be made after his own mental patterns. Now, if creativity, i.e., materializing information into physical reality, was built into the universe, and that the universe progresses as it does and gets increasingly complex as it evolved and matured, eventually an assemblage of matter would come together that would reflect the same quality of creativity that is built into the very natural laws that went into the creation of the universe. That's what we are. We have in ourselves a reflection of the pattern of creative information that actually assembled the universe that we are a part of and that we follow the same laws that are built into the universe. I'm talking about a way of looking at things that is not only scientifically meaningful, but it breaks through all the barriers that we currently have in physics and gives us a roadmap that we could actually lead ourselves to the ultimate science, which would mean to be spontaneously creating into physical reality anything that we can imagine.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of how we became, right? I mean, we had to have been somebody's thought, right? Or something's thought.
Thought is information.
Yeah.
It's a pattern of information. See, all I'm doing is taking all these various ideas and giving them a common set of terminology. That once we talk that way, Michael, and understand that terminology, we go, oh, look at this. This makes sense now. Oh, let's see how this is related to that. We can see how it comes together. For centuries, we understood what volcanoes and earthquakes were. And I talk about this in my book. We knew everything about the phenomenon in terms of what was visible. We knew what earthquakes did. We knew what they looked like. We knew what their effects were. We knew what volcanoes looked like, and we knew what their effects were. But we didn't know what the underlying mechanism was. All we had was this big bunch of data, much like what paranormal investigators are involved with, where they've collected all this data, and they just keep going back to these haunted places and just collecting more and more of the same data, but they can't fit it in any kind of model. It's just a bunch of information with no pattern. Then, late 50s, early 60s, a few geologists re-examined an old idea, which was called continental drift. It was actually originated by Sir Francis Bacon. That's how old it is. The idea that the continents were one time one mass and then broke apart. And through studying that and examining it, whereas only a decade before it was heresy. If you were a geologist and supported the idea of continental drift, you were out of a job. You couldn't get employment. You were blacklisted. It was that serious.
Yeah.
So they re-examined it, and through that re-examination, they came up with a theory that we call today plate tectonics. The fact that these plates move and grind into, against each other and under each other, suddenly the veil was lifted before our eyes. And without collecting any further information, just from that theoretical model, suddenly we understood what caused earthquakes. Suddenly we understood what caused volcanoes, and for the first time we understood that they were the same mechanism. And furthermore, we got an added bonus that we never suspected previously, that mountain formation was caused by the same mechanism that caused volcanoes and earthquakes. We didn't gather any more information. We just came up with a new paradigm. We came up with a model, and suddenly our eyes were opened, and now even a school child can explain to you what it is, whereas in centuries before, it thwarted the greatest minds that we had.
That's right.
What supergeometry does, what my work does, is it creates that paradigm. It presents that model that suddenly all these disparate pieces of information and anomalies and supernatural observations suddenly fall in and plug together into a logical system using a single set of terminology and principles to describe all of it in a whole singular model.
Now, how can this model be tested? Isn't that like the scientific method, right? Testing. How do we test models like this? Is there a way?
Absolutely. Now, there are a couple of tests. Because, again, you're right, Michael. You hear people come on your show for years. I got this theory. I got that theory. Well, how do you test it? You know, Because what they have is a notion, or at best a hypothesis. They don't really have a theory. The word theory gets tossed around a lot. Here's one of and now this is a little bit on the astrophysics side, but you have to think about this a minute. According to this model, the universe is expanding because the quantum singularity is still emitting physical reality like it did from event one, from the first moment. And the curvatures of space-time are being caused by this process. Gravity is a function of the curvatures of space-time. That means as the universe gets older, the percentage of bending and warping increases. And therefore, we have a greater measure of gravitational influence when compared to visible matter. That means that the further back in time that we go, which means the further we look out into the universe, because we're seeing light that emanated hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years ago, billions of years, some of them. And we were able to observe the gravitational effects that we see in far distant objects. It's never been looked for before. And compare it to the visible matter that we can see. The supergeometric theory says that the proportion of gravity to visible mass will be less the further back in time that we go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that can be measured. It's just nobody's ever looked for it before.
So that's true. I mean, if you look up into the night sky, there's going to be light points that you see up there that really no longer exist, but you're still seeing the light that was generated. Correct? I mean, so you're watching it, and some of them have like a wobble to them, and what would indicate some kind of pull and tug, and so you could pretty much get a description of what you're looking at, even though it's not really there, right?
Well, there's parts of it to that. I wanted to address something real quick. Somebody said in the chat room, I like the word concept until a theory is proven to be true. Well, again, this statement, I understand what it means, but it comes from a lack of understanding of what those terms mean scientifically. When a theory is proved, it becomes law.
Yeah.
So theories remain unproven. It's just that what a theory does, the theoretical model answers the most number of questions posed to it while being consistent with itself. And that all the examples that we have of phenomena that relates to the theory can be explained by that theoretical model. So, for example, we call Newton's laws the laws of motion. They've been proved that in local space, they are absolutely true every time from every frame of reference. It's only when we get into larger spaces that they begin to break down. But relativity is called a theory. Now, everything we've observed goes along with the theory. The theory explains what we observe. And when we do scientific experiments to test it, it proves that the theory is viable. Yet, we understand that the scope of the theory is so great that there is no way that we could ever test every aspect of it. There's some aspects of relativity that in order to test it, we would need, a particle accelerator like they have over in Europe, where they discovered supposedly the Higgs boson. We would need a particle accelerator on a solar systemic scale. In other words, we'd have to build one that was big enough to be like the orbit of Neptune or Pluto.
Jeez.
So as a result, we recognize that we can never prove the theory of relativity. But it remains a viable theory, and that's why it's called a theory, folks. while the laws of motion from Newton are called laws.
All right. Well, Thomas, hang on with us for a moment. We've got to take our break, and then let's come back and talk some more. This is all very, very interesting. I want to talk more about those other dimensions, those other realms, if you will. So we'll do that when we come back. My guest, Thomas Fusco. And folks, you're welcome to call in if you've got questions or comments. 803-392-4566. You can also call us on Skype. LNM Radio is the Skype ID. And folks, we'll also take your questions in the chat room. Private message, please, and I can pass those along. You can also email me at latenightinthemidlands@yahoo.com. I prefer you do it either in the chat or call us, though. That's probably going to be your quickest way for me to get to your questions. So with that, we're going to take this break and we'll return. This is Late Night in the Midlands.
This is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. You've heard Dr. Leonard Horowitz and experts urge you to avoid deadly vaccinations and illegal operators selling stolen OxySilver and OxySilver copycats. You've heard experts tell you about suppression in alternative medicine and confusing propaganda in healthcare and the truth movement. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver. Liquid Dentist GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Including OxySilver, the world's most powerful silver hydrosol. Electro-energized to put risky injections, toxic antibiotics, and deadly drug pushers out of business. OxySilver is covalently bonded to water. Unlike any other silver product using the frequency of chlorophyll 528, what Dr. Horowitz explains is pure tone love, the universal healer. NASA originally developed covalently body silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and more. OxySilver works three ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything, far better than all leading silver products, and without any risk. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with two P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
Late Night in the Midlands. We're building a bridge to the truth and beyond.
Share our content and use the hashtag LNM Radio for your chance to win a free subscription. Those who use it at least 10 times a month will find themselves entered into a drawing every month to win a free 2-month subscription from Late Night in the Midlands. So spread our news, spread our website, and use hashtag LNM Radio.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com.
Is there proof of God's existence in our government's records? Author Jose Collazo brings his years of research into this stunning question to light with his new book. Discover how new and experimental technologies may change our world forever and uncover monumental proof and answers to mankind's greatest questions in God Does Exist, No More Nuclear Testing, and more.
You could find Jose Collazo's book, America's New Slavery, on Amazon.com. This show is for the mentally sane and for those who accept an alternate reality to the lie you have been told. If you're politically correct, politically brainwashed, or politically insane, then I recommend you turn the dial immediately and go back to the lies and distorted reality that makes you feel secure in your unsecure life. We cover everything, should not be mistaken for we go along to get along. We are not those other shows who guide you down a dark hall because seeing is not beneficial to their bottom line. No, we turn a light on so you can truly see what lies ahead. We are not alternative, but if we were, then we would be an alternative to the lies, not the news, because sometimes the alternative is no better. We are independent. We are LNM, and we are saying it like it is. LNM Radio, exposing the truth, one show at a time. Attention LNM Radio Network listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the LNM Radio Network by calling 605-562-4203? No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 605-562-4203 to listen to the LNM Radio Network on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
On the East Coast of the United States, from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, you're listening to Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera. To talk to Michael Vera, dial 803-392-4566 or around the world on Skype. Just use Skype ID LNM Radio.
All right, folks, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and I am Michael Vera, and that stopped abruptly on me. Oh, okay, well, everything's going batty out of hell here. But, folks, we're back, and I've got a really good guest with me tonight, and I understand that some of you, this is getting a little out of your realm of following, and don't feel bad. I've talked to Thomas a few times, so, I've been through a lot of this, and so I have an understanding. I'm not going to say that I've mastered it. So apparently some of you are having a little trouble following. So what we'll do is we'll try to put it in terms that I think many of you can understand better. I thought he's done a pretty good job of that already. No, I don't totally understand it yet, but then it's not my model, so I'm trying to understand it. Folks, you're welcome to call in 803-392-4566. You can also call in using Skype. LNM Radio is the Skype ID, and we'll take your calls. Please get over to the website, become a member, be informed. And folks, I have another rule I want to throw out you there too. No promoting toast to toast in the chat room, because if you listen to that show, then I don't really want you over here, to be honest with you, because, well, I just don't, because they're, I could go on and on about these guys, but I'm not gonna. But, they do everything in their power they can to be sure that not a mention of LNM or Michael Vera is mentioned there. And believe me, I've had guests who come back and tell me that. So I certainly don't want to mention here. So let's forget about that controlled media. And let's get back to what we're doing here tonight. And again, you're welcome to call in if you like, 803-392-4566. Tomorrow night now, if the storms don't knock us out here, which I don't anticipate they will, but you never know. We're supposed to get some really bad storms coming through here tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, I've got Courtney Brown. We're going to be talking about Hitler. They have remote viewed Hitler, so this is going to be an interesting one. So that's tomorrow night. He's going to be with me for an hour. After that, I'm going to open lines for everybody. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about. You call in, we keep going. If not, well, then we could throw something on for you, I guess. So with that, let's get back to it here with my guest, Thomas Fusco. And Thomas, I don't know, I think we've lost a few people in the conversation. What do you think?
Well, it's difficult. And, you know, I've been watching a lot of comments in the chat room. And one of the things that becomes very frustrating about this is how do I say it? I want to say it very sensitively, but I need to say it in some way as well. You know, some people say sarcastically that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of people out there that have some knowledge of some of these scientific ideas, but they don't have the background behind it. So they'll say statements that are somewhat confusing, not because they don't know what they're trying to say, but that the way they're saying it is wrong. It's just simply wrong. It's incorrect scientifically. And so this is one of the issues that we run into when I talk about these kinds of things, because I am working with solid scientific foundations and what has been known. For example, someone mentioned tachyons traveling faster than light. And I had to mention that tachyons are a hypothetical particle. They're only reality on Star Trek. You know, we don't know whether they exist or not. And I would further argue that tachyons are again an attempt by mainstream physics to define something strictly in material terms. In other words, there has to be a particle to do what they want it to do. So they just invent the particle because all of reality has to be physical. And it sometimes is almost painful to watch, for example, people that will be arguing for a spiritual realm and a spiritual reality. And then they'll start using ideas that they were brainwashed with in school that are actually contradicting the idea of a spiritual reality and promoting a strictly physical reality, and they don't even realize they're doing it. So it's quite challenging. We need to know, have a good idea where we are before we begin to explore further from there. And that's some of the challenges with my work, trying to give that background information. But as you know, Michael, we talk about so many different aspects of it that it's difficult to sit down and say, okay, let's take a 45-minute session on relativity. And then I can explain to you the implications of dark matter and energy and why I think that my theory provides a better answer than those hypothetical particles invented by the materialists.
I see.
So it is tough. It's difficult.
And It can be tough. I mean, for me, I'm trying to understand why all this is, and I know that I'm going to go to my grave not knowing all the answers to this stuff. I think we all are. I don't think it's meant for us to know everything about it. But it'd be nice to, figure out as much as we can while we can. And one of the things that I've always been curious about, I don't know anybody who's not curious about this, but with all these realms, okay, they say, well, when you die, you go to this other realm and this happens and that happens. Why are we going through all this? I mean, why not just stay as we are now? Or, it's almost as if we're spiritual, and it's like, okay, so we've got to take this ride into the physical realm. So we pick up this body, we do all the, but how come we're not allowed to know these things? Why do we have to come into it blindly? And, reincarnation has been brought up a few times. I'm curious about that too. Because for me, if I've got to come back after I leave, I got to come back and do this again, I'm going to be a little upset because I'm just finally getting on my feet here in life. And so you're telling me that now that I'm getting close to getting on my feet here in life, that I've got to die and then come back and do it again?
Oh gosh, Michael, that's so funny. Oh gosh. Geez. Think about this for a minute. What if, I'm moving my hand right now to pick something up. What if my hand had a ghost that coexisted with that hand, that was in what I call an omniversal model that includes this higher supergeometric realm where there's information, but there's no material, and the information is trickling down and turning into the material. My supergeometric or non-physical or spiritual hand, however you can best digest it, is moving. It's connected to my physical hand. It's still there. Now, what happens when the physical hand is destroyed? When the person dies and the hand decomposes and rots and disappears. According to this model, the information is still there. The information exists independently of its material manifestation. If you turned off the Cheez-It making machine, or took all the Cheez-Its that came out of it and ate them so that they didn't exist anymore, they were destroyed, the pattern in the information necessary to make the Cheez-It still exists. We just see no more Cheez-Its in our particular vein. Now, in this model, if we were to look at something religiously or, Judeo-Christian, I would be talking about the soul.
Right. But this outside of all the religious belief on everything, I mean, I myself have had experiences with the other side. Now, grant you, some of these scientists could be right, and it could have been something triggered in my brain, some chemical. But if so, then I'd like them to explain the information that I was given that I didn't know. This information was given to me, and it came to be in a couple weeks that followed. So, I mean, and this came from the other side. This came from my meeting of somebody who had died several years prior. I mean, and I can't prove it to anybody, but I proved it to myself. I know it was true. Mm-hmm. But could it have been my own mind that's done those things? I guess I have trouble with that.
Well, here's where we come into another aspect of my work, which people have found very refreshing. One of the problems or the complaints that I have with physicists is that their discipline is supposed to be, and the definition of physics is to study everything physical. Everything physical. And there's certain areas that they avoid. And one of the places they avoid is psychology and biology. Physicists avoid it. Although under their title, they're supposed to be able to study that as well. So let's take a physicist's look at the mind, or better yet, the brain. I don't like to use the word mind because it's too subjective.
Yeah.
Physical brain is something we can all like, okay. Even a scientist can say, okay, the brain, it's physical. We can figure that out, or at least know what it is. What is a thought? What is imagination? Isn't it physical?
Well, no. Is it? I mean, no.
That's the effect that we see. Because when we do the scans, and I can't remember the names of some of them right off the top of my head, because I'm not in the medical field, we see specific thoughts taking on electrochemical patterns in the brain.
Oh, okay. Yes, that we definitely do. But is the spirit, the soul, the energy that we are, is that energy using that brain to like you'd plug in a vacuum cleaner, that vacuum cleaner will use that electricity from that outlet to run. So the electricity will run through that vacuum, right? I mean, is it something like that?
Yeah, it's that kind of an idea, but a little bit more, how would I say it? That the human brain acts like a transceiver. Okay, let's say, for example, I'll give you an example from paranormal phenomena. If someone sees an apparition, that information is coming from somewhere. That information is not visible, it's not measurable, and it's not coming from the local space. And yet it's emerging into the local space and creating an effect that we recognize as a pattern of a human being. So let's say the apparition is the materialization that we see materially, we measure it, experience it, of the non-physical information that exists beyond our physical realm.
So let me ask you this: when you think of your own mortality, you think about your own death. I mean, how do you see it? Do you see yourself going on? I mean, and going on as what and how? I mean, am I still going to be me, the same me? I mean, I think I am, but I don't know for sure. I mean, I've not died yet. I've had out-of-body experience, but, what happens? I mean, when we die, do we still feel like we have arms and legs and all this, or are we just some blast of energy that just goes where?
I would not speculate to know how we would experience it.
Right.
But my belief is that the information that makes us up is preserved forever because it exists in a non-physical plane where there's no temporal coordinate.
Uh-huh. So it's kind of like an Akashic record then, and that's something like that.
Yes, except that it's given a scientific framework with scientifically relevant terminology that's tied to existing scientific terminology and ideas. Yes, that's the idea.
But I don't want to just be on a shelf collecting dust. I want to be, I wish we
if
do.
you're there, you won't be collecting dust or on a shelf.
No.
Let me give you an example, and I am going to talk about some things in the Bible.
Okay.
But I want to talk to them as illustrations and to show how this model actually ties the Bible into all this as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, in fact, I call it a cosmology of the Bible that's been hidden in plain view for centuries. That people just haven't seen it because they haven't put two and two together, the right little pieces, like, plate tectonics, that kind of an idea. Now, let's say, for example, that we're relating this to the Bible, beginning of the universe. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth, but they were void and formless. And then he imposed a structure, an order, a pattern, a piece of information, light. Be light made. And instantly light was materialized from that piece of information. Now, the information exists in a place where there's no time. So sometimes I'll blow people's minds, you know, when they talk about Christians, they talk about time, the beginning of the universe, and the end and the resurrection and all those things. And I tell them they're happening now. The beginning of the universe is happening now. The end of the universe is happening now. Because from that framework, from that frame of reference above the physical, there is no past, present, and future. They're all collapsed into a single coordinate. It's almost like, picture a wheel or a bicycle wheel. And imagine the outside with the rim and the tire being our normal space-time. It has depth, it has width, it has height, and it moves. It has velocity and it moves through time because we can time its movement. Now, picture the hub, the actual center, the axle. If we were looking at that axle, Michael, straight on from the side, it would appear stationary.
Right.
There would be no differentiation at all. There would be no multiplicity of dimensions. There would be a single coordinate. But yet the information in there trickles down the spokes. And as it reaches the ends of the spokes, it materializes into physical reality. And so, for example, how would I say this? We know of the story about Jesus feeding thousands of people with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. We've all heard of that story, that account. But the account doesn't say that he created all different fishes. He fed everybody with the same 5 loaves and the 2 fishes. Now, in this model of supergeometry, what that would mean is that there was a blueprint for those 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And they just kept reproducing it from that same blueprint, like a mold. You could take a single mold and mold several thousand items that are all identical to each other from a single mold. And so it was a temporal miracle because the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes were in thousands of different physical coordinates at the same single coordinate in time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, when you start looking at it this way, these things begin to open up. You know, how did a withered hand was made whole? Because the blueprint for that hand existed somewhere.
That's right. We've got a call here, Thomas. We've got James. James, welcome aboard.
How you doing, Michael?
Good.
Hi, Thomas.
Hey, James, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Since you got back on Bible, I got a question here.
Sure.
That I'd like to bring out here. I had two people that I met back when I was in the Army that they were both into devil worship and Satanism. And when I asked them why they were into it, they both answered the same way, that they said that they read the 7 versions of the Bible, and the result of those readings is that they're into witchcraft. And given that our leaders are all Luciferians, do you think there's something to that?
Oh, what you're asking me, James, has no reference point. You know, it just like me saying that I read Alice in Wonderland in 7 different languages, and because of that, I believe in blue tomatoes. So what you're telling me, I don't know, because I don't know what their thinking is from A, B, C, D. I read A and I thought B and I experienced C, therefore I believe in D. So I don't really know what their beliefs were or how they derived it. As far as evil, if we read the Bible very carefully and do away with some of the traditional denominational ideas that were promoted to simplify things, and to make it easy to digest for the laity, so you fill pews instead of empty them, because the people who occupy the pews have money that they will give, and empty pews, you don't run churches with that. When you look at it very carefully, you can see that evil, what we call evil, or in the more archaic Jewish sense, the adversary of God, is necessary for the existence of the physical universe. Because without an adversary, there are no differences. Because God is supposed to be pure and of one substance, and that he is consistent within himself. You can't build a physical universe out of that. You have to have an adversary. So, evil, there is a tangible aspect of evil in the physical reality that we see it all the time. Things go through change. They go through corruption. They go through decay. Living things die. They decay and they grow sick and old and they die. And they have to reproduce themselves to maintain, a continuous series of life. So these things that are of death, so to speak, and I'm speaking in a very broad sense, because our universe itself, from what we understand in astrophysics, is dying as well. It is slowly passing to its most likely state of non-existence. These things are real, and people who worship them are worshiping something that's tangible and real, in my opinion. Now, how they came upon that, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's just I just found it strange that neither one of them knew each other, and that was their conclusions. And of course, our leaders are like that too. So I don't know if there was some kind of code or something hidden in there, and I just wanted your opinion on it. All right, thanks a lot, Thomas. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Thank you, James. I appreciate the call, and I'm with you with the whole Luciferians. I think a good deal of them are, anyways. We've got another call.
Great.
We've got 469 area code. You're on Late Night in the Midlands. First name, where you're calling from, please.
Hey, it's David, and I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Hey, David. Welcome aboard.
Hi, David.
Hey, good evening. So I had a few questions. I was listening to the science conversation earlier. Mm-hmm. So I wrote these down. I was going to read them off because I'll get tongue-tied if I don't. Right?
Okay.
So,
fair enough, man. I have to do the same thing. If I need a formula, I have to hit the reference books, man.
Yeah. Okay, so how does electromagnetism interact with gravity? So that's A. And then how does resonance affect electromagnetism and gravity? And then would it be theoretically possible for electromagnetism to be resonant with gravity?
Well, here's what the problem is. Electromagnetism is a propagation of waves. They're very specific kind of waves. Of course, electromagnetism is all light. And these are actually physical waves with frequency and amplitude. Now, gravity, according to the relativistic model, and again, people can get confused about this because, and even a lot of people who write about it, what they call pseudoscience, because scientists look at that and they say, well, it's pseudoscience because they don't really understand fully the principles that they're talking about. Gravity is a function from the relativistic model of the curvature of space-time. And this is why we have never been able to find a gravity wave or a graviton, a particle of gravity, because its effect is actually a function of space-time. Einstein used a model. He said if you had a bowl and you stretched a rubber membrane across the bowl and you placed a very heavy round object like a big steel ball in the middle, it would cause a depression in that rubber that would surround the ball. And then you take a small ball like a marble and roll it across that fabric, and it will begin to spiral following the lines of that rubber membrane. It'll spiral down into the depression caused by the curvature of space and collide with the large marble in the middle. So electromagnetism is actually a substance that travels along the lines of space. So could one say it resonates with it? Well, no more or less than every other physical object embedded in this embroidery of space-time. So I'm having trouble with your premise because I don't see a consistency there. Maybe you can explain it a little further.
Well, so there's this idea that, take granite, right? Like, depending on the shape of the granite, because every section of granite would be a different shape, and that would affect its resonant frequency. Okay. But there's an idea that could be used as a way to move the granite or to move objects. Now, that's not factual, but the idea is there. So I'm just wondering, would there be a way to use electromagnetism to impact gravity, even though gravity is not observable, right? So there's no gravitron. We haven't been able to directly identify any type of particle or wave or thing that's gravity.
Yeah.
But do you really need that to have an impact on it? Like, we accept that gravity exists.
Yes.
So would it be possible to find a way to use electromagnetism to influence gravity? Is kind of
possibly. Yeah, possibly. And the principle behind that would be that gravity is a function of the curvature of space-time that is found in the presence of material points. Now, I'm using Einstein's terminology here, material points. So, for example, if we take the sun as a huge material point, and that's not literally what Einstein meant, but it can be applied that way. The gravity of the sun is the result of the warping of space that surrounds the sun, that surrounds that material point. So we know that matter influences space-time, and there's bends associated with it that cause the effect known as gravity. This is why we understand that if you took two very small objects and put them in the deepest of space, where space is flat and there are no curves, they will be attracted to one another by their own very weak gravitational fields because of the space that's being bent around them. Now, is electromagnetism, is an electron a material point? Absolutely, man. It is. But here's the challenge. How do we generate enough electromagnetism to warp the fabric of time or space, to manipulate the fabric of space?
Well, that's a grand concept, right? Like, I think that would be the end, which would be the place to begin. But I think maybe if we could just do it on a very smaller scale to prove the idea. Okay, so we can't measure gravity, but here's an experiment that proves that we can, adjust the electromagnetism of an object, of a thing, and thereby influence the gravity that we're able to observe, or the effect of gravity, or the effect of electromagnetism on this object as it relates to, gravity itself.
The problem with this is that electromagnetism, first of all, we would have to look at the mass of the object. And in order to manipulate that in local space, in the way that you're mentioning, we would have to be able to manipulate that object's mass. Now, could that be done electromagnetically? Possibly. But what you're talking about is a scale that is almost unimaginable.
It almost, to me, sounds like a UFO, the way one of those travel, right? Isn't it?
Well, see, my supergeometric model offers an answer to this that isn't based on materialism. In other words, if the singularity, as I talk about, is continuously unfolding into physical reality and expanding the universe, and is the cause for things like apparitions, where we see information materializing from that non-physical source, that indicates that there is a direction of flow. In other words, it flows from the superphysical to the physical. It has a direction, just like the universe had a direction when it expanded. What my theory says, that it is possible through resultant resonances, which is a little bit different than what you're talking about, to reverse that flow. Now, what would happen when that flow is reversed? That an object would begin to dematerialize. In other words, under normal conditions, a physical object like a piece of granite is a full materialization of its information flowing from the non-physical or the supergeometric or the spirit realm, whatever you want to call it, down into the physical plane and fully materializing. If we were to reverse that polarity, that flow, through a resultant frequency, we would begin to see the granite dematerialize. And one of the things that would be the result, initial effect that we would observe, is the reduction of its mass. And eventually, it could get so dematerialized or lose so much of its physical presence that it would begin to appear transparent. And going a little further, if it's still visible, it would look like a specter and could actually be moved through a wall. Sounds just like a ghost.
Yeah, it does.
And then if you're able to influence that mass, like what you were just saying, in that space, right, with that effect, then from what we were talking about earlier, it seems plausible, at least, that in that state you would be able to have a greater impact with electromagnetism. Because you've impacted the matter.
Yes, of course. Because granite, given 1 ton of granite, in order to influence its mass with electromagnetism, remember, and this is a proven formula, E = mc squared, you would have to have such a huge amount of energy that you would literally burn the face of the planet that the granite was sitting on. To give you a reverse idea, so we really have an understanding what E = mc squared means, which is what I struggle with because many people have heard it. They have the general idea, but they really don't know what the numbers mean or the implications. If we were to convert energy back into mass, the entire energy output of the sun would not be sufficient to manifest 1 McDonald's hamburger. You would not be able to make 1 ounce of matter with all the energy in the sun. So if you're talking about an electromagnetic field sufficient to manipulate the actual mass in the Earth's gravitational field of a ton of granite, It would melt the granite, would disintegrate everything in the area.
Well, Thomas, I was kind of playing with your idea there, right? So you're saying that with your theory, using resultant resonance, that could potentially have an impact on the mass.
Absolutely.
And what I thought, right. So what I thought was, if you, right. And in that state where you've used resultant resonance to have an impact on the mass, and it's now reversed that flow and it's dematerializing, would you then be able to have a greater impact using electromagnetism? Or would you even need to at that point?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if its physical presence is sufficiently reduced so that its mass of a 1-ton block is reduced to 20 pounds in this particular gravitational field of the Earth, you could pick it up and carry it anywhere you wanted to.
You need a lot less thrust then for like propulsion, right? I mean,
well, you're still thinking materially. Let me take it a little step further because I think I'm following where you're going. According to this theory, if we work on the premise that every coordinate in the universe has a unique resonant frequency, which is one of what part of that theory is. That means every point in the universe has its own unique address in the fabric of space-time. Now, if that's the case, if we reduced the physical presence of this block of granite to zero, which would mean complete dematerialization, it would be like a ghost or an apparition that you see, and then it fades away and disappears. The information that comprises the construction of that granite still exists. If you were able to open up what I call a diffluential field bubble, which is a bubble basically of gravity, massless gravity, which Einstein demonstrated in formula by defining the mouth of an Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is a gravitational field that has no mass. He needed that to work on his unified field theory because gravity wouldn't work otherwise. He had to come up with a massless gravitational field. And that's where the Einstein-Rosen bridge, what we call wormholes, came from. If you were able to bend space in that way, and I believe through these resultant resonances you can do this, and do it at the correct location, and bring that information back into that bubble that you've created, it will fully materialize again into that block of granite anywhere that you've sent it. This is how I think that spacecraft from other solar systems could get here and bypass space and time.
The idea there on an idealistic level, I guess I should say, it makes sense. I mean, how can you ever travel 1 billion light years? Like, you don't. Like, in my head, you don't. You can't. You go from you're here to you're there. And, I mean, what you're saying, I mean, on that level, it kind of makes sense. Where you reverse that flow, you dematerialize, and then you appear wherever it is that you want to be.
That's it. You're reversing the polarity that's going down the spoke of the bicycle wheel.
Well, wouldn't that be teleportation?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. It's really interesting.
Teleportation, anti-gravity. It would explain the two-slit experiment in a way that was being talked about before. It would explain why we have gravitational lensing in the universe with no adjacent mass. And the materialists have dreamt up this dark matter and dark energy to explain it. And the stuff just...
So, Thomas, do you have a book or anything? Because I would love to read it.
Yes, it's called Behind the Cosmic Veil, A New Vision of Reality, Merging Science, the Spiritual, and the Supernatural. It has diagrams of all this stuff. You can find it at www.cosmicveil, spelled V-E-I-L. Not the Cosmic Veil, but just cosmicveil.com. And there's a place where you can order the book there.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, man. I'm going to jump off here and let you guys get back to it. But thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for calling, because your questions were able to bring out an aspect of the work that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great night. And, yes, thank you for the call. And, Thomas, we've got to take our last break, so hang on with us for, one more time. And we'll take more calls when we come back. Anybody got questions or comments? 803-392-4566. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and what an interesting conversation tonight with my guest, Thomas Fusco. We'll be right back.
This is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver. Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
Hey, folks. Do you love Late Night in the Midlands? Do you miss shows because of the time of night? Do you wish you could listen at your convenience? Well, we can help you out with that one. Become a late nighter without the late nights and subscribe. Become a late nighter for just $5 a month. That's right, $5 a month for the paranormal, the unknown, the known, but most important, the truth. Go to www.latenightinthemidlands.com and subscribe right away to become a late nighter and help keep the LNM radio network on the air.
Are you a late nighter? Well, if not, here is one more reason to join the family. We have added the Late Nighters Forum to latenightinthemidlands.com, and it is open for discussion of our many topics and guests. Now you have a place where you can share your thoughts and ideas with the entire Late Nighter community. So become a Late Nighter by subscribing on our website, latenightinthemidlands.com, and start leaving your mark on the Late Nighter community now.
Is there proof of God's existence in our government's records? Author Jose Collazo brings his years of research into this stunning question to light with his new book. Discover how new and experimental technologies may change our world forever and uncover monumental proof and answers to mankind's greatest questions in God Does Exist, No More Nuclear Testing, and more.
You could find Jose Collazo's book, America's New Slavery, on Amazon.com. Attention LNM Radio Network listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the LNM Radio Network by calling 605-562-4203? No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 605-562-4203 4203 to listen to the LNM Radio Network on any phone, anytime, anywhere. The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Imagine, if you will, a man, a media, speaking the truth. Imagine a show that covers UFOs, ET races, the paranormal, and the not-so-normal. A media that speaks the truth no matter who or what it leads to. Imagine, if you will, a media that covers everything. Folks, you just entered the LNM zone. LNM, keeping it real when others don't.
On the East Coast of the United States, from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, you're listening to Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera. To talk to Michael Vera, dial 803-392-4566, or around the world on Skype. Just use Skype ID LNM Radio.
All right, folks, we are back. This is the night shift. This is Late Night in the Midlands. It don't get any later than this, really. We're on for Eastern time anyways, 9 to midnight. After midnight, you're heading into the morning hour. So, truly is late night, truly is the night shift. And, I love it. I really do. I love it. I love doing it. It could be challenging sometimes, but I love it. It's a lot of work, but you know what? All work and no play. It is not. It's a lot of fun involved as well. So this is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera. My guest is Thomas Fusco. He is truly a scientist, and boy, does he think like one. And he's explaining quite a bit to us here tonight. I hope you're taking notes, or maybe you'll be a late nighter and be able to go back and listen to this time and time again, or even get his book. That'll help too. Folks, speaking of help, you can help us by donating. Remember, we didn't reach our quota the last couple months, and so, we need to. That's what keeps us here, The more shows we add, the more we do, we just keep building and building and building and trying to make this network, keeping it as great as I think it is. And it's not just because it's mine. It's because, really, you look at the shows we have and the different hosts that we have here on the LNM Radio Network, and we've got some really kick-ass shows, I think. And what makes them that way, so not to keep repeating myself there, but what makes them so great is that they're real people, no agendas, and just giving it to you straight. And I love it. And, we've got hosts who actually do their research. Come on, look at Ryan. Look, you want to get into symbology and stuff with him. He'll take you around the world a couple times. We've got some really good hosts here, so I hope you'll continue to support us and help keep us on the air. Late Night in the Midlands has been the mothership for all this, and you can help us by becoming a late nighter. You get access to the forums. You get access to insider videos that we occasionally do. You also get access to the archives. And most of all, you keep us on the air. And oh, by the way, there's a new book that's going to be coming out. I've wrote a chapter in it. It was actually an Amazon #1 seller last year. But now I'm in it, so we'll see what happens. But this book will be available. I'm just kind of giving you the gist about it. I know it was posted on my Facebook page. it's not done yet. It's not going to be out yet, so I don't have it right in front of me. But I promise I'll get that information and I will share it with you. And for the record, for all those who think, oh, money, 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 not me. I'm not making a dime. I wrote a chapter for the book. I'm not getting no proceeds for you know what I get out of it? I get to tell my story. That's all. So all right, let's get back to it. And I don't have a problem with that either. So. All right, so Thomas, we're back, and we've got about another 20 some minutes to go. So what I'd like to do is give you the floor to get out anything that you'd like. But before I even do that, I've got to ask you, because we haven't hit that yet tonight. We've gotten out into the universe, but we haven't really touched on this, and that is extraterrestrials, other life forms out there. I'm guessing the way you think, the way I see your mind working, you've got to know that we can't be the only ones, right?
I think it's impossible that we're the only ones. And the reason being, let's take a look at our own Earth and the data that we can accumulate about it. The information, the findings that we have. And I'm going to set any kind of religion or faith-based ideas aside for a moment.
Okay.
From everything that we can see, life was a spontaneous manifestation, that it emerged from inanimate matter. And that doesn't fit in with our current scientific models. We can't understand how that could occur. So here's where we have something where life, as I said, emerged from inanimate matter. My only argument that I think makes perfect sense, a lot better than the evolutionary story in and itself, is that life, in other words, when I was talking about earlier about whatever information created the universe, left its fingerprint on everything in the universe. In fact, the whole universe is structured according to the laws and principles dictated by that fingerprint or that blueprint.
So our daddy's got babies everywhere.
Well, what if that body of information was alive? Then life would be programmed into the universe, which would explain how life could emerge from inanimate matter, because it would be an inevitability. Just like more complex compounds formed from the simple elementary particles. It was built in, the game was rigged from the start. Nothing in the universe is random in that way. It's a randomization that's built into the principles that guides it. So, that being the case, when we take a look at the Earth, we see a couple of things about the Earth. That the Earth is sufficiently dynamic and sufficiently complex. And life is very dynamic and very complex. So if we have an environment that's dynamic, what I mean by dynamic is the fact that we have an Earth that constantly convulsed, that it moved and it its plates crushed together and move apart. And, we have all these chemical reactions that are going on in the Earth. It's a dynamic place from the very beginning, as opposed to the moon, which is a static place. It's dead. There's nothing dynamic going on. So that dynamism, plus the complexity arising from it, creates an environment in which life can emerge.
But are we sure that nothing is going on the moon? Can we be sure that it is what they tell us? Do we know? I mean, that sucker's always illuminated. And someone brought up a good point with that. It's like it's illuminated. It's like day or night, so it's like the sun is always on it, huh?
Oh, yes. Well, the sun's on all the planets all the time, unless they go behind an object big enough where the sun doesn't hit it any longer. And that's a whole conversation in and of itself. But
it is, and that was a question that came in, and of course, then you've got those who say, "Well, the Earth is flat," and I can't even go there. I don't know if you can.
Help me! Really, there's no intelligent life. Beam me up. It's and I've heard a guy talking about that before, and he conveniently left out certain observations that we have. He mentions certain observations and says, from this you can tell, or you couldn't tell that the Earth was round. This and that could very well be flat. And the observations we have and the track records of things that we've done in space that we have that prove the world is round, is a globe, he conveniently leaves those out.
Well, they go on to many of them will say that those things never happened. It was all just basically an illusion.
It's a conspiracy. Yes.
Well, it is, yeah.
Just remember, and I typed this in the chat room earlier, because I know there's a lot of folks out there who are very intrigued and interested in a lot of these alternative ideas that are promoted by different people. Study the established science and physics first, because these are based on solid scientific findings. Now, findings aren't theory. We take findings to derive theories and principles from. Findings are just information that we've gathered. But study that first, because if you take these alternative people as your source of ultimate authority and reckon forward from what they're presenting you, you will always be wrong.
You are so right. I can't tell you. I couldn't count on my fingers and toes, and I don't think I could count on all the people who listen to the show's fingers and toes. The amount of people out there who might have never took interest in, say, a certain topic. I don't know, let's pick one. Let's say UFOs. And then somebody will put something out there that's the first thing they see, and it's, oh, that's true. That's it. And that's where they base it all from.
Yes, and then they use that person's presentation as the foundation of their knowledge system from which to reckon.
That's right.
All these guys, most all these guys, they will, and I can give you an example from everything from ancient aliens to the electric universe.
The ancient aliens. There's another one, the ancient aliens. It's like, and I like it, and it brings attention to the topic, and it does. And some of the stuff they make good points, but it gets a little ridiculous that everything's the aliens.
They will begin by presenting something as a mystery that really isn't. That we already know the facts behind it. And they will present that mystery as something real. Now, once you believe that what they're explaining or the point they're bringing up truly is a mystery, then they got you. Then they can weave a whole story around that, and they carry you away with it.
Well, and you
don't know.
They basically give the human race credit for nothing. Like, we were only playing with stones, and that's it. It's like everything that is had to have come from ETs. Now I'm one who thinks that ET played a part on this planet at some point, but I'm not going to credit them for everything. I'm not going to say that we couldn't have built a car without them or something.
Yes, like Tesla received all of his information from the aliens psychically or something. Trust me, folks, I have been to conferences where I've sat down and talked to these kinds of people who promote these things. And when you really start getting into personal conversations with them face to face, for more than 2 or 3 minutes, you begin to see that, folks, let me tell you something. I've been in the field. I've touched upon all of this. I'm being generous when I'm saying, and forgive me my language, 75% of everything you hear in all these alternative fields is bullshit. And I'm being generous I would say the number's probably closer to 90%. And they are promoted by two kinds of people. People who know they're shoveling BS. They know they're doing it. Or sometime long ago, they began drinking their own Kool-Aid. And they have convinced themselves that their BS is real.
I would agree with that. And then you've got 10% of it out there, at least, that is real people, and they're talking about real things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't weed that out. Usually, that's what the problem is.
It is difficult, but you know what? Nowadays, what you're seeing the same. For me, I've said this a million times, but you're seeing the same people who have distributed and controlled the flow of information for decades. You know who they are. I mean, I don't have to start mentioning names, but the same people, same shows that have always been there, and you know. That's all changing now. And so people are starting to get different perspectives of different things. And now these other, these gatekeepers, they're trying to keep up now. They're like, well, we better act like we're real or something and do and so they're trying hard. I mean, they really are, but they're falling behind because the real information is out there. And if people, it's like this, just confirm for yourself. Make sure that you do your own research. Don't say just because Michael Vera said it, it's true. Who knows? I make mistakes too. We all do. So, and then there are those who are just purposely flowing the BS, like my guest just said, and believe me, I've seen it. I mean, I've had some of those people on the show who I later found out were just totally whatever. Okay, and even in the chat room, we've had people who've come in there who have just swung some serious BS. And it happens. You're gonna find it. And like you said, I'd say 75, probably 85%. I don't know if I want to go 90, but you're probably right.
I was being generous.
You were.
I was being magnanimous at 75%.
Well, right. And so it is. It's true. I mean, there's a lot, and then there's those who they'll take truth. There is some truth, like even things with time travel and stuff. We know that there's possibilities to it, and I don't know what's been done on that line, what they've been able to accomplish, but there could be big things. But there's people who will come out and take that little bit of truth, and then they'll wind that around. They'll make their own web, and before you know it, they start believing what they're saying.
Oh yeah, they drink their own Kool-Aid, absolutely, and they have the kinds of loosely assembled minds that allow themselves to deceive themselves. And once you deceive yourself, everything comes out of your mouth is going to be deceiving everyone else. The deception starts inside. We could go on and we could have a show just talking about this.
Oh, I've done this before. I mean, we've had these shows before, and every now and then I think they're important to have. Because, some people say, oh, stop the infighting. And I'm thinking, look, we're not in. So I'm not infighting with anybody. I'm just telling people the truth. I mean, I hate when they say, oh, well, look, I just saw them before it's news. And this is what they're throwing at me. And I'm like, well, where's the sources? I mean, you have any sources? Yeah. Did you call anybody to make sure that any of this was accurate? Well, no. But I always read Big Joe Mama's on before it's news, and they've never lied to me before. Okay.
Yeah, man. Somebody called me one time a conceptual cop.
What's that?
It is somebody who, polices some of this alternative stuff and, calls people to the mat when they're saying stuff that doesn't make any sense. And I've not grown in popularity in some circles because of that. Just remember, when all these guys, folks, I've been at these conventions, I've been speakers at them. When all these guys get together, trust me, they sit down at the table together and they're all winking at each other. And they're all playing footsies under the table with one another because they all know they're all in the same flipping game. And they get upset with me because I'm not a player. They think I'm a player. So when they say something, they expect me to be playing along with the game. But when I come up and say, no, you're wrong, that doesn't make sense, and this is why, they're shocked. They look at me like, well, here's a den of thieves. How could one of the thieves come up, stand up, and point their finger at everybody else and say you're all thieves? Because I'm not one of them. So I don't keep the charade. I don't keep the game. I don't play the game they're playing.
Yeah, it's the go along, get along to go along to get along game, is what it is.
And everybody's in on it. They're milking the same audience.
Yeah, it is. And there's people out there, it doesn't matter what anyone does. They'll follow them no matter what. I mean, they could blow up a van of babies and it's still, I don't care, they still told the truth, So,
but people want to believe it. I was at an event one time where the somebody spoke, and they actually said this sentence, and I had to walk out because for me I either had to walk out or stand up and just say you're crazy, right up in the audience. He said scientists have produced DNA in a test tube, therefore the human race was engineered by aliens. And I saw so many people in the audience looking up with their mouth open and their tongues hanging out, shaking their heads. Yeah, that makes sense. He says, I'm a bunch of idiots. I got to get out of here.
You got to catch the stupid bug.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Educate yourselves, folks. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
Now.
I'm totally with you on that. And, it's important to talk about these things once in a while because, it's just like the guy that wrote me today and, says that, what did he call it? Something science. Anyways, people like that, I mean, I don't know where they get their ideas from. It's like, I have guests that come on this show and they talk about all kinds of different things. I don't agree with all of them. I don't think they're all, bullshitting, but at the same time, I don't think they're all telling me the truth. I think that they've, some of them, I think that it might have been mind control experiments, really. I mean, they believe stuff that much, but then there's others that I do believe them. So, it depends on the guest and I'm not, it's not my job to call them out, unless it's something serious. I mean, it depends. I mean, if they're going to say they got abducted by aliens and they really didn't, if I catch them, I'll call them out. But, I'm not going to go digging, like gold. I mean, but then I know people who claim that they've been to Mars and back and,
You're not talking about Stillings, are you?
Oh, he's one of them.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I'm sorry. We are digressing.
We are.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. So, but anyhow, what I would like to do is give you the floor to get out anything that you'd like, and maybe another time we could do one of these shows. But I don't know. I've got enough enemies, right?
Well, I already knew I was going to have enemies when I started out, but. Unlike many people that are trying to make headway in these fields, I published my work as an expression of truth. And I wanted to tell the truth. And it took me a long time to find it. When I found it, I told it. And if people like it, that's great. If not, that's okay too. So anyway, visit my website at www.cosmicveil, COSMICVEIL, cosmicveil.com. You'll find out a lot of information about what my work is, some articles, where to buy the book, all those kinds of things. I haven't kept it updated lately because I've been doing other things now that I am officially retired. But that gives you a background on what my work is. And then, of course, the book is going to go through it very methodically, step by step with illustrations, building this theory. So by the time you're done, you'll know exactly what this is all about. And, hopefully, like many people, it's to expand your brain.
Well, yeah, and that's what's important. That's what I tell people. This show, it's about truth. Yes, we are trying to get to the truth, but it's also about expanding your mind. And sometimes we talk about things like we talked about tonight, that it's hard for people to grasp their minds around, or their brains around, or their thoughts around. But it's stuff that I think is well deserving of conversation, just as the UFO phenomena is, because it's real, and I see it out there. And you know what's funny, Thomas, is and I'm sure you've gone through this with many of the different things you've researched. But do you find that sometimes, like when you first started, how you might look at things, and then let some years go by, and you look back and you think, how come I never thought of it this way? Where you just totally, you look at something totally different than how you used to look at it.
Well, I think we all do that. I know in my own work, it took me a long time before I was happy and said, I have this down. Everything that I ask it and shoot at it, it comes back to me clean. I can express it the right way, and it all goes together. It like I say in my promotional, it took me 3 decades, and my opinions changed a lot of times where I held a certain opinion, and then when I got new information and put it together, I realized, oh, hell, that's not going to work, and threw it out. That's no good. So yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's a fella, I think it's Tomato Picker.
Yeah.
In the chat rooms, he keeps yelling to ask a question.
Oh.
Do you know what he's talking about?
He wanted to know about neutrinos.
Okay.
So, he's yelling at us again. Neutrinos. So he wanted to ask about that. So I don't know. That's kind of in your court, because I don't know what neutrinos is.
Neutrinos are a very strange particle. Okay. They have no electrical charge. And particles interact with each other because of their electromagnetic charges down on the quantum level. So neutrinos do not interact with other particles because they have no charge. So they can pass through other objects. We have neutrinos going through the Earth and through us all the time. They just go right through.
Yeah, you were just talking about that, about like a ghost. You said, right?
In a sense. Now, an interesting fact about neutrinos is that they are a bone in the Higgs boson's throat. Because the Higgs boson, the Higgs field, was supposed to be the field that imparts mass to all other particles. But the way that the Higgs field is supposed to impart mass is that it strips away the strong nuclear force, which is a polarity. Neutrinos it can't strip, and neutrinos have mass. So the press made a big hullabaloo in the scientific world. We solved all these problems with discovering the Higgs boson. There's still big problems with it. And at best, it can only explain about 5% of the universe's mass, where supergeometric theory explains all of its mass. But anyway, I figured that's part of the. What was the theory? What was the question about neutrinos, though? Do we know?
I don't know what the question was about them. Just he says, ask him about neutrinos.
Okay. Well, that's in general. We know they exist. We're able to detect them on occasion, and we know what their basic properties are. We know that they are. Or we understand to the best of our ability that they were one of the first primary particles that emerged at the beginning of the universe.
Okay, he says time travel, is it possible? And I could even answer that. Yes, it's but you don't know how to do it, but it's possible, right?
Well, in my model, all you have to do is refer back to the model, the example I talked about with the bicycle wheel, and imagine dematerializing up one of those spokes and then coming down another one at a different coordinate in space-time. You know, and that would be time travel. You know, things travel through time all the time. You know, we're all traveling through time. The idea is to bypass space-time. Well, I don't think it's possible within space-time. You have to go outside of it, which means the only way that we can affect it is going through that third state of reality, what I talk about, the supergeometric state, where you basically leap over time and space and come back down in the place that you want to.
So then it would be possible, say, if I wanted to go 25 years into the future, it would be possible for me to do that and still be who I am right now. I mean, you know.
If we can accept the evidence of apparitions, let's take an example of the somebody moves into a house, you know, an investigative team gets a call. We're seeing this apparition of this lady that is dressed in these, you know, in these Victorian clothes. And the images are fairly clear, what they're seeing. And one of the investigators does research at the local library and finds somebody in the records, a woman who lived so many years ago in that house and died violently or whatever. They get a picture and they show it to the residents. And the residents look at that and they're shocked. They turn white. They say, "Oh my gosh, that's the woman we're seeing. We recognize her face." Well, the information still exists beyond time. The physical manifestation of it, the materialization of that information, died and rotted away 100 years ago. But the fact that that information is materializing today sufficiently for people to recognize a person's face from a photograph from it means that that information has traveled in time. That apparition has jumped 100 years in the future.
Interesting, really interesting. Thomas, once again, the time has flown by, and I really enjoyed talking with you. We've got to do this again soon. Maybe not put so many months in between, and I thank you. Anything you want to throw out there? You got any new projects coming up, or anything you want to tell anybody about before we're done, or?
Well, I've been toying around working on a book about refuting the false premise of the multiverse, and so I'm working on that a little bit. But you know, I've been kind of putzing around, really. So, but Michael, yes, I mean, anytime you want me on the show, I'm glad to come on. It's always a pleasure, and as you know. You and I could go on this subject for many, many hours and still maybe not even scratch the surface.
Oh, I know it. I've got tons of questions that were coming in email-wise, too, and I didn't even get to those. But that's okay. I mean, I think that a good majority of it we covered in our conversation anyhow. So, folks, a lot of it had to do with the extraterrestrial thing. So we had some questions come in about that. And wow, Thomas, thank you. Been a great night. I appreciate having you on.
And thanks for having me on, Michael. Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, we'll do this again soon. All right,
okay.
Good night. All right, everybody. There he goes, Thomas Fusco. He is linked up on LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Go check him out. Get your hands on the book. Folks, this is one of those things you might want to go back and listen 2 or 3 times, because sometimes if there's anything distracting you, you could get lost in this conversation. But a very, very good conversation nonetheless. And tomorrow night, I've got Courtney Brown joining me. We're going to talk. They've apparently remote viewed Hitler. So we'll be discussing that project tomorrow night. For about an hour, he's going to be with us. So from about 9:30 to 10:30. And then after that, I want to open lines, and hopefully you will all participate and, talk about what you want to talk about. Call in and let us know what's on your mind, whatever it might be. And, well, folks, we got a storm. So we're being told severe storms to be expected. Perfect tornado weather heading our way. Supposed to be here by tomorrow, which would be now in just a few minutes. So at some point, maybe tomorrow night, I don't know. So we're waiting that. I mean, we just got over the floods, right? So why not? But I'll tell you, it's strange. This year, it's not got cold. I mean, we've had a few cold nights. We had, I think, just maybe a half dozen cold days, if that, this winter. But it's been fantastic. I mean, the last couple days, folks, I've been out in shorts and short sleeves taking my walk. It's been beautiful, upper 70s. It's just been wonderful. It really has. We haven't had a winter here. We really have not had a winter here. Maybe a week total of cold weather. I mean, it's just been fantastic. I don't know. Is things changing? Maybe they are. I mean, I've been here for 8 years now. I've spent 8 Februaries in South Carolina, and never before in February have I been able to go out in shorts and short sleeves. So, interesting, folks, to say the least. Keep your eyes posted to the sky because you never know what you might see. Keep your ears posted to this broadcast, folks, because you never know what you might learn. For Ira and Jolene, I thank you much. And, folks, please, again, make sure that you donate. If you've been thinking about it, do it. That helps us a tremendous amount. As a matter of fact, I've got to purchase a new mixer now because I'm actually sending one to Peter Kling so that Ira can be relieved of helping him do the show every week. So that's where the money goes, folks. We try to keep everybody on track and keep this network rolling. We help each other here. We don't go after each other. And so we'll get Peter Kling controlling his own little deal right there at his fingertips at his desk. And so that's what your donations do. They help us with things like that. And, of course, keeping the lights on. And we'll keep a light on for you just as long as you keep helping us out, folks. So thank you, everybody. We'll be back with you tomorrow night. This has been a broadcast of Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. Good night, everybody.